Choose action over apathy.
Together, we can protect our winners.
I'm here in Bozeman, Montana, in the new reality of virtual meetings. We are still all connected, albeit in a slightly different way. So join us. How is cool, how is happening, and how is you?
Everyone, happy Thursday. My name is Lindsay Bourgoine, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for Protect Our Winters. And we've got some special guests here tonight to wrap our lobby camp week 2020. We're pretty excited about it. Thank you all for joining us tonight and also for your participation in this week. I think one thing that was really exciting is to have our whole community involved. So I'm going to give you all a few stats, and then we're going to ask Sasha and Tommy, who have joined us here, a few questions and kind of hear some reflection about how things have been going. So first off, I want to let you know that the Protect Our Winters Action Fund, our sister organization, we hosted 32 meetings with members of Congress this week. And a lot of times people ask us how many Republicans, how many Democrats. We met with 15 Republicans. We met with 17 Democrats. We met with 17 House members and 14 senators. And that covered 17 different states, which is pretty cool. So not a short effort. And then we had 133 of you all made calls to your representatives and your senators as well, which was awesome. I think Tommy was on the other end of the phone, helping out, which is cool. And then we also did a new thing this year where we had some of you all calling in and thanking some of our champions. Well, our athletes like Tommy and Sasha were meeting with elected officials, and we had 186 calls to clean energy champions, which was pretty cool. And so I guess the last thing I'll share is for some of you who are part of this, we're using this new app called Team. And we had some head camp counselors this week, Emily Harrington and Adrian Bollinger, who I'm sure Tommy and Sasha, you guys know well. And we had a big competition between them, Team Emily, Team Adrian. I'd like to report that Team Emily is coming in with 94 calls and Team Adrian has 100. So if you are a competitive person, it's now time to make a call and to up those numbers. We'll see if Emily can overtake Adrian by the end of the night.
Give it up for Emily.
Yeah, I'm voting for Emily.
I wanted to know kind of where you guys were on that. So good to know. Awesome. A couple more things I just want to share with you all that we're not quite done, even though we're having our closing ceremonies tonight. We are actually going to release a special episode of the Caroline Gleich Show, Caroline's podcast, tomorrow. And on Wednesday morning, she got to interview Congressman Raul Grijalva, who's the House Natural Resource Committee chair. And he is the original co-sponsor of a bill called the American Public Lands and Waters Act. And so that was something we talked about on the Hill this week, and she interviewed him all about that. And I think you all will really like to hear that conversation. So we'll share that. And then we're recording another podcast tomorrow on something called Political Climate. So you guys should look that up. Maybe one of the PAL staff can throw that in the chat right now. But we'll have the CEO of New Belgium, Steve, and Danny Davis are going to join that podcast. So you can look for that next week. And then one last thing. There's a group of House members called that come together. They form a group called the Caucus, and it's a Sustainable Energy and Environment Caucus. And their staff all get together every Friday for meetings. And we have alpinist Graham Zimmerman and one of our Science Alliance members, Liz Burkowski, coming on to brief them tomorrow. So we've kind of got one last little kick on Friday. And with that, I'm really excited to be joined by Tommy Caldwell and Sasha DiGiulian. And we're going to talk a little bit about this week and how it went. But overall, what do you guys think?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for everybody that joined in and who is here now. Yeah, I got a question for you, actually, Lindsay. So obviously we were talking about public lands and clean energy issues primarily. Can you get like a little bit more granular, like tell us a little bit more about our specific asks that we're making of the lawmakers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good reminder for all of us. I know sometimes when we go through policy, it's like really complicated and we explain it really fast. So I think it's always good, they tell it to them once, tell it to you twice, tell it to them 3 times, and then maybe we get it the 4th time. But so we were talking a lot about clean energy. Oh, thanks. Maddie's got our slide here so we can talk a little bit about this. But in general, the clean energy economy was hit really hard by the COVID pandemic and causing a lot of project cancellations and supply chain disruptions. And so what we really wanted to do today was have a conversation about, now that Congress has passed many recovery packages that are really helpful for Americans and hospitals and governments that need support during this pandemic, there's been a lot of talk around, okay, now what could economic stimulus packages look like? And that's essentially, how do we rebuild our economy and regrow it? And we just want to make sure that clean energy is considered in that, because it's lost nearly 600,000 jobs since the beginning of the pandemic, just in April. And we want to make sure that it's rebuilt. And so we were talking about a couple elements that we felt like were really important there. And again, I just want to say, like, the reason that Protect Our Winters advocates for clean energy is because we know that transitioning to a clean energy economy is a way to reduce emissions pretty rapidly. And we know that protects the places and the lifestyles we love from the impacts of climate change. So basically, a few things we talked about. One is called direct pay. It's a little bit wonky. It's basically the idea of, like, how can we just get money into the hands of clean energy developers so they can keep building projects? Another one was the Renewable Energy Extension Act. Also sounds complicated and is about tax policy, but you guys have been talking about this all week, but essentially there are tax credits for people that put things like solar on their roofs, or developers that build commercial scale solar. And I think on one hand you could say, hey, why do we need tax credits? Isn't the clean energy economy growing rapidly? And it's true, but in this country, we still have really heavily subsidized fossil fuel sources of energy. And so to keep clean energy on a level playing field, we do need those tax credits. So so we have that bill that basically extends those tax credits to give some market certainty. We also talked about electric vehicles and extending tax credits there, as well as helping more Americans purchase electric vehicles. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about public lands and making public lands part of the solution. And I think you all will love to hear that Caroline Gleick show episode tomorrow, because she's really going to dive into what that bill is, which is saying we should make our public lands net zero in terms of emissions by 2040. So there you have it.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, Lindsay, the sentiment that Tommy expressed. Like, I really appreciate everything that Protect Our Winters and you have done to make this event happen. I know in the past it's always been physically going to DC and lobbying. So how did POW come up with this concept of taking it virtual and making it still happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure I have like a really good answer, other than we were pretty disappointed not to go to DC this year. I think obviously the COVID pandemic changed many of our lives very quickly, and many of us are at home. And I think the first thing that happened was we just heard from a lot of our community of, hey, I'm at home. Like, how can I learn more about advocacy? How can I attend your trainings? How can I do more advocacy actions? And so I think we heard this like real hunger from the broader community. And then second, I just think, if we take a moment and look around at all the conversations that are happening in the world and in our country right now, it didn't seem like it was the time that we should back down on advocacy. And I think the idea of teaching, whether it's, professional athletes like you all or our broader outdoor sports community, the importance of creating relationships with their lawmakers and calling them about issues that they care about, kind of regardless of what those are, felt like it was really important. And so I have to kind of laugh, because I know both of you work a bit with the Access Fund, and I know Tommy was chatting with the Access Fund about how POW is doing a virtual lobby day, and their policy director called me and said, what is virtual lobbying? And we were kind of laughing at Team POW, because we're like, we actually don't know, but we're going to give it a shot, and we're going to try to host meetings on Zoom. And I think in a way it was really cool, because we got this opportunity to involve so many different athletes. We had 65 brands and athletes participating this year that, not everyone is really stoked to put on a suit. I don't know, Tommy, in 100-degree heat, how much you liked that last year, but being able to do this from the comfort of your home. And then the last thing I'll just say is the opportunity to involve our community was just such a critical option for us. So it was like, if we're going to do this virtually, how can we embrace our whole community and invite them in to make calls? And, you know, as you both know, when we go to DC, we're limited in our ability to do that. So it was pretty awesome to see kind of everybody support your efforts.
Yeah, having walked the Washington, D.C. lobby floors, it can get really hectic. So I have to admit that it was nice doing it from home. Also, arguably better for the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my first time meeting with lawmakers with the option to not wear pants.
I love it. And
Nice.
Tommy,
Yeah,
were you in a van for a lot of your lobby meetings?
Yeah, I've got two crazy kids running around at home, so I got to sneak out to the van, which the lawmakers seem to like that.
They did ask Tommy. They were like, "Are you in a van right now?"
They did it.
And Sasha, I think you had a special cat appearance during one of your meetings today.
Yeah, Pixie always finds the camera.
Yeah, in fact, actually, you wouldn't have even been able to lobby this year if it was done in person, because you can't really even walk right now, right? Because you just have
I kind of got lucky with the timing of everything. If I am to associate having a broken pelvis as luck, but I mean, doing things virtually is definitely like I have the time for it, so worked out well.
Awesome. So in general, I'd love to hear, like, I have a couple questions for both of you, but how was your week, and how did your meetings go?
I mean, I think they went well. I mean, there's certain advantages to virtual lobbying, like the fact that we didn't have to have 60 people fly across the country is pretty huge, and just for like each individual lifestyle is nice, and we can invite so many people in. I do think that making personal connections does happen a little bit more powerfully in person. So I was happy that many of the meetings that we had that I was in were actually people I've met with in the past and have taken the time over, 4 lobby trips basically to build these relationships. And I feel like that's important. But if you have those connections, which is great, Pal's coming back. What is this, the 3rd year for Pal? Is that right?
Yeah, 4th. Oh, we've been going to DC
yeah.
kind of since Jeremy started in 2007. But at the beginning, it was kind of like maybe 5-10 athletes, and for 3-4 years now, we bringing like 40, which is awesome.
Yeah, so we're coming in force now, and they expect us, and they're excited about us, and so doing it virtually kind of, I feel like it fed their excitement. It kept it going as well as ours, and we were able to make some good asks. So yeah, I think this was a pretty good format.
Yeah, I also thought that it was a really effective format. I would echo the same point that Tommy said. You can notice a difference on like a screen keeping like the two sides apart. And I think that the meeting length was a really good length because everyone could kind of introduce themselves and try and establish that connection. And then we could also have time to really dive into the deeper conversations about which bills were relevant. And from my end too, like some of the information that I left some meetings with and wanted to quickly find out more, it was really easy to be like right at my computer to do so.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. That's definitely helpful. And for those of you tuning in, maybe you're wondering, so we did have a lot of Zoom meetings, which was kind of fun. You could put up like the Brady Bunch version and watch everybody and kind of see, Tommy in his van and Sasha with her cat. But I think, we did also have some phone calls, and I don't know about you all, but I found the phone calls to be really hard because just like Tommy, you said, that personal connection like really isn't there when you're kind of on a conference call. And so as much as Zoom, I'm sure a lot of us are really sick of it, I think that was a cool angle to have this year to actually be able to see some of the members of Congress face to face.
Yeah, I mean, having the Zoom was like infinitely better than phone calls. The ones that were just phone calls, I came away being like, oh, I just don't feel it. Especially the one that I was on, there was a phone call I hadn't ever met. I think that was Senator Braun before, or Senator Braun's staff. And so, yeah, that was hard to make the introduction for the first time over the phone.
What were some of the key themes that you guys heard in the meetings? Like, you both had multiple meetings, and what were some things that just kind of came up over and over again?
I would say that something that echoed with me is introducing the actual economic numbers that we can increase through the outdoor job economy, and like what sort of numbers also Protect Our Winters represents at large for how much change we can affect. I would say both of those two sides played off well. The Great American Outdoors Act was something that was commonly discussed, and also renewable energy like wind and solar were definitely topics of my meetings.
Yeah, a lot of the people that I met with were members of the Bipartisan Committee on Climate Solutions. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Whereas last year I testified in front of the Democratic Committee on Climate something or other. I forget exactly how you say it. It's nice to see that there's this bipartisan approach. I felt like that was an evolution. I feel like over the years, the climate message is resonating with both sides of the aisle more and more, and I find that incredibly encouraging. And I think the reason for that is because so many young people are speaking out right now. This is coming from the bottom up, so we need to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing for me that I noticed was a lot of folks just really encourage us to remember the importance of voting, and that voting is a key part of being an active member of democracy. And I think for Protect Our Winters, who's doing a lot of work around that this year to try to get you all in the outdoor state out to vote, that was exciting to hear that like echoed by our lawmakers too.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of climate, everybody realizes right now that voting is such a huge thing. So if you're not feeling fired up to vote now, I don't know what's gonna make that happen.
True. Was there anything that either of you learned this week, or things that kind of surprised you?
Well, I thought that it was like Tommy said, like the fact that more people on both sides of the aisle are admitting to the severity of climate change was definitely motivating to see those changes. As far as surprises, I was really excited to hear about people's incentives to increase tax benefits for renewable energy sources, and introduce those sort of benefits as well if they don't exist in their states. So I thought that was a motivating surprise.
Yeah. In the past, I felt like carbon tax was sort of this pipe dream when we go to DC, and it felt like a legitimate conversation this time. That was surprising to me and very exciting.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add there is I feel like it was a good reminder that our members of Congress are people too. We had one member of Congress call in from what was definitely a bedroom, and it was kind of funny to be like, oh yeah, all of us are like working in these weird office spaces that we've made around our house right now. And I think that's one thing I like about going to DC is like meeting with members and remembering that, they're so inspired by our athletes and they're human too. I think sometimes we just forget that. So, awesome. We do have a question from the audience about, Tommy, kind of conversations that you had around clean energy this week. We have someone named Pearl tuned in right now and said that you're a really inspiring role model, and they're really psyched about clean energy and want to know what you think about it.
What I think about clean energy in general,
sure. Or a conversation you had about it this week.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on this, but I feel like the megaphone of the youth and of so much of America really is penetrating onto Capitol Hill right now and making a huge difference. And so I'm certainly more optimistic than I have been in a long time about the future of policy and how it's all going down. So yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting
awesome
time.
And that question was asked to you by a 14-year-old, so you should know that the youth are
awesome.
here. Yeah. Another
Yes.
question we had is, how many times have both of you been to DC? And I think, Tommy, I know you came with us last year, and it'd be cool to hear kind of like, I know you touched on this a little bit, but how is this year different? And Sasha, I know you've been to DC before, and then this was your first year lobbying with PAL. So kind of what inspired you to do that? But what have your trips to DC looked like?
So you want to go? You can go, Sasha.
Yeah, this was my first time going to DC with POW, and it was a really cool experience. Like, you guys did such a phenomenal job of really educating us with all of the material that we may have known, probably on my case didn't know about some of the people that I was meeting with, and just background information. I've gone with the American Alpine Club and the Access Fund, I think 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. So I'm from DC too. So
You've been there a few times in person then?
I've been there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so I also went the first time with the Access Fund and the American Alpine Club, like probably 4 years ago. And I didn't want to go, kind of like when they asked me, I kind of just went out of this curiosity. I was like, I have no place in a suit in DC. Like, why would my voice work? But I learned how the system works when I was there, and I got convinced that policy work is the most efficient and effective way to make big systemic change. And so I think I went back probably every year with you, Sasha, 3 times, or maybe 4 times with Access Fund and the American Alpine Club. And then last year was my first year with POW. And it was set up a little bit different. There was a few of the POW athletes did a hearing in front of a Senate committee last year, which was kind of a press event, which felt like kind of intimidating and exciting in a lot of ways. And yeah, just going back time after time, I'm like, some of the senators, like Senator Bennett is almost like a bit of a friend now at this point. And, DC is like any community. You kind of got to make these friendships to really learn how to make a difference sometimes.
That's awesome. So I know there are a lot of people that are tuning in that really look up to both of you all as role models. And as we mentioned earlier, we had kind of a group of about 60 people, speaking this week. And so I want to ask you, like, who are you impressed by this week, and who are you excited about in terms of the meetings that you had?
Sorry. Did you mean from our team?
Yeah, from the POW community. Like, I would throw out there that I was just constantly impressed by Gretchen Bleiler, who just really is such a strong storyteller and one of the original POW board members. And I just think she's so well spoken. And I definitely was thinking, man, that'd be great to have talking points kind of lined up like her. I think she just did an awesome job.
Yeah, totally. I think that everyone on my team I was impressed by, but I really was impressed by you, Lindsay, for keeping the council in our different meetings, of really like ushering a Zoom call isn't easy because everyone's in different digital locations. But I was impressed by all of the organization for sure.
Thanks. And I didn't throw it out there to say that, but we were joking that it's kind of like, it feels like you're in class, because in all of our Zoom calls, as you guys probably know from tuning into different ones, it's kind of like, hey, you get, you get 5 minutes to talk and you get 5 minutes to talk, and having a facilitator, I think, was helpful. And I guess one tidbit I'll add there really quickly is that POW, over the years, like Tommy, you testified in front of the Senate committee last year, and people come to that, like different lobbyists, like those things I think people forget are all open to the public. And over the years, we've had different people come into those hearings and be like, this is so awesome. I want to be a part of POW. I'm a lobbyist. How can I help? And so this year we had 3 team leads leading our teams that were all volunteer, and just people that have showed up and been like, this is so cool. So Tommy, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, I could go a lot of places with this, but yeah, certainly. I mean, make no mistake about this. This whole event is like choreographed and set up by you, Lindsay, and I've been so thankful and impressed by how it goes down. And having to switch and do this virtually went down amazingly well. You equip us so well. So I mean, that's huge. In terms of other people in the meetings, I mean, I'm always like hugely impressed by Caroline Gleich. She's just like such a hard driving environmentalist who's so passionate and sympathetic. And I'm always I didn't actually have meetings with her today, but I feel like or these last few days, but she's always does so much. Some of the I think Claire Gallagher coined this, the business shredders. Like Luis Bonitas was on a call, and he's just like, he's kind of been in politics for a long time, and he knows how to speak that world, and is very, very articulate. And, just listening to that guy talk teaches me a lot. Yeah, those are some of the ones off the top of my head.
Awesome. And I do have to do a quick shout out to Corey on the Protect Our Winters team. Corey was the master scheduler this year and the master Zoom scheduler. So Corey, thank you for all of your work. Go ahead, Sasha.
Oh, I just wanted to say another thing that I was impressed by, and I didn't actually get to do the interview yet with Senator Rooney, but I really appreciated what I learned about him, stating that he's a conservative Republican and climate change is real. That, I did some research on who he was and some of his latest statements, and he's really been a bold advocate for climate action. And I look forward to that conversation.
Awesome. And we're definitely going to work to get that on the books. So thank you for all your work on that. One last question from the audience. Now that Lobby Week is done, what plans do you have for kind of future lobbying, lobby style impact this summer?
Yeah, I'm going to be dedicating as much time as possible to getting people to vote. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? So, yeah, doing events. I'm not sure what form they're going to take. I had basically decided to sacrifice my whole October this year, which is, like the Super Bowl of rock climbing season is October, to figure out how to get people to the polls. I was going to do that live events. Who knows? I'm going to figure out, maybe I don't have to sacrifice my season now that I can just do it on Zoom, but we'll see. Still going to be putting a lot of effort into that. Letter writings, following up with these lawmakers that we met with this week. Yeah, and learning, that's, really diving deep. And, there's so many different, bills and packages and ideas that came up during the meetings that I want to learn more about so that I can become more impassioned and then spread the word.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this year is so important to vote. And I think that, just to reiterate Tommy's point, like encouraging my audience and whoever beyond my audience I can reach to vote, but also I found the power of conversation and just getting to know both sides of the aisle to be really informative and significant. And I did start doing this Instagram live show, and I had a great conversation with Senator Warner, who's a senior senator from Virginia. And I'd love to just go down that route of continuing to have conversations with people in office so we can understand, from afar, that we actually are more connected to our elected officials than we may think. And also encourage people to reach out to their local officials and be aware of primary votes. Some states have already had them, and local elections.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've seen a pretty interesting evolution. Like my first time to DC, I was like, why are politicians going to care about outdoor athletes? But I think they realize right now that the youth and the social media world is like so powerful, and they themselves have like no following for the most part. And so really they're getting to all of you guys through us, and they want to hear your voices. Like your voices make a big difference. So.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to end. And I feel like, one thing that we've done a lot at Protect Our Winters is we put out these campaigns and we're like, hey, it's time to email your member of Congress. And what we hear all the time is that the importance of actually picking up the phone and making the call. I think, Tommy, that goes back to what you were saying originally about connecting with people. And I know sometimes it's just leaving a message, but it's kind of a greater step than sending off a mass email, and definitely has a bigger impact. So we're going to continue at POW to always offer you that opportunity to be making phone calls. And I think, all of us are pretty competitive by nature people. I mean, we heard our report out from Team Emily and Team Adrian. And so I would just encourage you all, like, whether that's something, you want to challenge yourself to call every day for a month or every week for a year, whatever that looks like. And Protect Our Winters is going to continue to use the Team app, which is how we made our asks this week. So this is exactly what the Team app is. Just go ahead and click that QR code, scan the QR code, and you can make an account with us. And we're going to be using that as well to get out the vote this summer. So this was kind of our first launch of using it, and we had more than 300 people, which was awesome. So we want to continue to grow that to make those asks. So if you haven't made your calls this week, now's your chance. Go ahead and do that and help us grow our list. Maybe help Team Emily win at the end of the day. And thank you both so much for joining this week and for joining tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'll also add that I've learned that you kind of need all the layers. You need like the collectivism stuff, you need the phone calls. But if you're like a lawyer or a scientist who wants to write a long, well thought out letter to your politicians, that actually is like very effective as well. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Rally it all.
All right. Have a good night. Happy lobby camp, everyone.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you guys.